You're about to enter the Atomic Voodoo Lounge, New Stanton's one and only surreal dive bar, bringing you beauty and magic and terahertz tragic. I'm Maxwell Vegas, writer, poet, musician, and author of the novel New Stanton. Descend with me into the static buzz of late night radio, where words and music swirl through neon dreams and drift like cigarette smoke out over dried up prehistoric seas. You've just entered New Stanton's place for a taste of the strange in poetry, fiction, and music, where the offerings come steeped in liminal noir surreal vibes. Welcome to the Atomic Voodoo Lounge podcast. Take your seat at the bar, relax, order a drink, enjoy the show. I'm Maxwell Vegas, and tonight we will have a new episode of the Neon Mirage's Back Alley Noir, written by Wade, curator of the DVD Vault on Substack and Instagram. This episode focuses on John McNaughton's Wild Things from 1998. In addition, we'll have brand new music from the Riptide Rats and Kitten and the Tonics. We'll also have the second and final segment of Zoe Falk's short story, Backrooms Panic. And I'll throw in a little poetry by yours truly, Maxwell Vegas. So, what are you drinking? How about a cocktail inspired by tonight's Back Alley Noir movie, Wild Things? This is called the Everglades Double Cross. It's a neon tropical, dangerously smooth cocktail with a sweet surface and a venomous bite. It's sultry, humid, and full of ulterior motives. Here's what you'll need: an ounce and a half of white rum for that Florida heat beach town charm, half-ounce blue curacao for that Miami Vice neon sheen, half-ounce pineapple juice for tropical sweetness, deceptively innocent, half-ounce lime juice for that sharp plot twist, quarter-ounce simple syrup, that's the lure, 1 dash of Angostura bitters for the corruption underneath. Optionally, you can use a tiny pinch of salt for that sweat humidity tension, and garnish lime wheel or pineapple leaf, something that looks like it's hiding something. How to make it: add rum, curacao, pineapple, lime, syrup, bitters, and optional salt to a shaker with ice, and shake it hard like a secret you're trying to bury. Strain into a chilled coupe or rocks glass over crushed ice, and then garnish with something tropical that feels just a little too perfect. And enjoy that sweet tropical opening, citrus snap, rum warmth, and bitter shadow. New Stanton, the novel by Maxwell Vegas, is now available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. New Stanton sits on the shores of a dried-up prehistoric sea, the kind of town you pass through without staying, a streak of neon across a night-traveling mind. And that's exactly where Harold Dean finds himself trapped, menaced by a rockabilly psycho, a mysterious German doctor, and his own fragmented past. While his prized 1964 Chevy Malibu is the key to his escape, he just can't seem to remember where he left it. New Stanton, a postmodern night journey told through the eyes of Harold Dean, a shady alcoholic. Buy your ticket today to New Stanton on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You won't regret it. Tonight, the Atomic Voodoo Lounge podcast and New Stanton's Neon Mirage Theater are proud to present Back Alley Noir, written by Wade of the DVD Vault on Substack and Instagram. The Back Alley Noir series is an attempt to introduce newcomers to the world of noir and neo-noir cinema, in addition to nudging the noir-minded to revisit some spectacular films. John McNaughton's Wild Things 1998 is a masterclass in purposeful sleaze and possibly the horniest movie of the 90s. It revels in how scuzzy and depraved it is and knows exactly what it's doing with every male gazy shot, every hammered up line of dialogue, every shoehorned sex scene, and every absurd twist. And when you think Wild Things has had its fill of filth, its cup runneth over in the final moments by casually revealing that two of the people you've watched together in multiple sex scenes are actually related. Yikes. I love how Wild Things is populated with just the most awful people on the planet. Class plays a huge part in this film, but regardless of social strata, they're all human garbage. The strangest thing, though, is that the most likable character is the crooked lawyer, played by Bill Murray. If I have a legitimate complaint about Wild Things, it's Murray's exit after the trial. The movie's still very tongue-in-cheek, but not nearly as fun. Viewing Wild Things from the perspective of an educator immediately takes away any illusions the film tries to construct around Matt Dillon's Sam Lombardo. He crosses so many lines within the first 10 minutes of the movie that it's impossible to think he's innocent. My philosophy with students is to be friendly but never their friend, and the constant discussions of Lombardo's being such a good friend to his students sets off so many alarms in my head. The only thing I could relate to with him was that he worked at a school in a town where he could barely afford to live because of class disparity. Been there. Wade is a lit major and an educator who shares and discusses films through the physical media they're printed on. And he has an impressive movie library of over 2,400 films. For more of his insightful cinematic discussions, please visit his DVD vault at dvdvault.substack.com. Here are the Riptide Rats with some brand new music. Atomic Shark. Atomic Shark by the Riptide Rats. Check them out on Bandcamp, Apple Music, and Spotify. Here is the concluding portion of Zoe Falk's short story, Backrooms Panic. An hour later, Catalina hid under one of the desks and barricaded herself in with several chairs. Scattered chip bags and candy wrappers littered the floor. She wasn't sure how long she had stayed in the maze. There were no working clocks or windows. Even if there were, she considered, they wouldn't be real. The most recent note was cupped to her chest. Surely this Peter person made it out. So far, there was one monster, but it was too big to go through the thin gaps. Based on the contents of the letter, it wasn't smart. It tried the doorknob. Maybe it can't. She slept for 3 hours, then lay under the desk for 5 more. Combating boredom was never her strong suit. Her friends would often joke over how she failed to sit in hour-long lectures. Jessie even concluded that she had autism. It was an absurd suggestion, of course. Her family had no history of such disorders, only cancer from her father's side, whoever that was. Her mother never gave a name. Still, the teasing was a happy reminder that she was alive at one point. Enough to laugh and sit at a park bench for hours and just talk. She turned over and lay on her back. Under the desk, Catalina could make out the tiny engravings etched in the wood. Her brows furrowed as she read some aloud. Alice, forgive me. Margaret, I miss you. Benny, you were right. We could have been happy. The one that broke her was, I'm sorry, baby. Mummy's not coming home. How many people had found themselves in the same situation? How many cried under the same roof and rummaged through the vending machines? She had assumed Peter was the only one, but the dates on some of the carved writings went back to the 90s. Maybe they got out, she thought. Her eyes darted to the pink slip in her fingers. Conference room, okay. Chest puffed, Catalina crawled from her hideout, but not before she picked up an empty fountain pen and carved her initials in the sea of memories. The office spaces were separated by clean corridors. Some had blue-rimmed clocks that were stuck at different times. Others carried shelves with plastic plants. As she followed a wide path with couches pressed against the wall, a crack of thunder boomed in the space. Rain? She rushed to the other end and pried open the door. Bright light flashed before it went dark. The room was a conference hall with windows lined against the northern panel. A long table was in the center with thick, black swivel seats on either end. She ran to the glass and peered into the rainy evening. A cityscape was beyond the windows. Towered skyscrapers brushed a painted roof. Trees and grass patches swayed in the heavy raindrops. Her gaze flicked upward. The rain had come from busted sprinkler heads. That doesn't account for the thunder, though, she muttered and squinted. There has to be some speakers or pyrotechnics. But why make a fake city? She turned to the table. A slip of pink paper was folded neatly on it. A star was carved next to it. She picked it up and read, Dear reader, crazy, huh? A fake city right outside the window? I'm not sure why it's here, but it's possible that we're in an underground government facility. Just a theory. I found some papers describing null zones and physics, fancy words for, hey, in reality, there are spots where atoms align. When you walk up to them, you basically fall out of your dimension and end up here. They're all over the world, many being in Texas. I thought the city would have answers, so I tried to get there, but every step took me back here. You see those doors on the east wall? I took the liberty of making big X's on the ones that looped back. I'm going to go through the last one. If there's no X, then it's a way out. This area is nice and safe, but who knows how long it'll take that thing to learn how to get in. I already found open ceiling pads. I don't know if it can crawl in the rafters, but I don't want to be the one to find out. I highly doubt you'd want to either. Sure enough, she glanced right and spotted the row of doors. The last one was left clean. She scoffed and shook her head. Of course. Why am I not surprised? The door opened to a metal tunnel with pipes suspended from the roof. Oh, what the hell? With a heavy sigh, she shoved the third note in her pocket and stepped inside. Mold filtered through her nose. She coughed and pressed her arm to her face. The bolts above were covered in black spots. Shit. Heels picked up as she marched. I can't stay in this place too long, or it'll obstruct my breathing. Not sure if this is good for my back either. Small drips splashed on the concrete floors. A dirty sock stench made her head pound. She started a jog. At any black-crusted section, she'd hold her breath and sprint. How far does this go? Every nook and ridge was blocked by a brick wall. Catalina slowed to a stop and plopped on the only dry area in the hall. She panted and chugged the last bit of water she had in her plastic bottle. Fingers gripped the note as she read it a second time. Peter left no further instructions. Just great, she grumbled and put the paper in her back pocket. Thanks, Peter. A low rumble shook the pipes. She jumped and peered down the way she had come. It was pitch black. She took a step back. Silence ensued for all of 6 seconds before a deep lion's roar followed. Fast steps raced toward her. With a gasp, she bolted in the opposite direction. The scream turned to a high-pitched howl. Further ahead, a light blinked, every flash a different color. Her feet skidded as she dove into the doorway. Hands slapped an iron ladder. She climbed it just as the creature squirmed into the small door frame. Her body flew up the steps to a hatch. It was open. The creature swiped at her feet and clawed her ankle. A wail left her as she scrambled out of the hatch and slammed it shut. It had a thick padlock. She pressed her body against the smooth metal and secured it. The panel shook with every bang on the other side. Catalina whipped around. She was back in the yellow rooms. Her ankle bled from the black wound and sizzled with every step. Catalina's foot hummed when she stopped at a stool next to a working lamp. It was plugged into the wall, though there was no outlet. Nothing makes sense. A sudden rush gathered at the base of her throat. She lurched, hobbled to the corner, and puked. Oh, God, she shuddered and spat the last bits of Skittles in the puddle. Cold shakes took over as she limped back to the stool and slumped on the seat. After taking several deep breaths, she peered down at her foot. The blood soaked her sock and the rims of her shoe. She took it off and inspected it. To her relief, the scratches were shallow. The slips of paper bulged in her pocket. She took out the first letter, read it over, then pressed the grainy slip to the cuts. You'll do for now. She slipped her sneaker back over her sock and limped down the monotonous lobby. The area, though similar to the space she woke in, had finer wallpaper. The diamond patterns curled at the tips of the shape. It reminded her of Grandma Olivia's bathroom, which paired well with her orange and white checkered floor. She smiled as citrus and bleach surrounded her. It swirled around her thin, stringy hair. I miss those summers. A sudden throbbing headache reached her frontal lobe. Catalina groaned and held her temples. "Damn it, don't start now. I was doing just fine." Dr. Hatlin warned her migraines were a clear symptom of the cancer. Next would be seizures and nausea. In her peripheral vision, a light flickered. A wall was split in half. It had a sizable gap, and beyond, a warm orange overhead light wavered. One half of the wallpaper had a star. "Found you," she sighed, and scooted sideways through the narrow space. An empty apartment kitchen sat to the left. It consisted of a broken gas stove, wooden cabinets, and a window leading to another wall. Her eyes trailed from the thin frame to the small brown trail that started at the cabinet and down another crack in a barrier. A letter sat on the gray marble countertop. "Dear reader, I hope you found this letter. I ran into that monster again in the tunnels. It managed to swipe my arm, but I used my jacket as a bandage. Still bleeding all over the place, though. Listen, I found something. Something great. One of these cabinets had a gun case. It had the same logo as the company paperwork I found. I guess they hid it in case one of their own got hurt. Sorry to say, but I took the Glock 19 that was in it. I'm going to kill that son of a bitch. Did you know it can't see? That face I talked about isn't a mask, but sliced human flesh. Real freaky shit. Still, it has no eyes, only a mouth. If I'm sneaky, I'll be able to shoot it before anyone else gets hurt. If it didn't work, well, you'll find it with my corpse. And hey, if this is my last letter, I just want to thank you. I don't even know who you are, but writing these notes has been the closest thing I've gotten to a friend for years. Good luck. Oh, and before I go, I got here in 2011. When you get out, can you find Moose and see if he's okay? I miss him. Your friend, Peter Nolan Jr. It's alive. Oh, Peter, she sighed with slumped shoulders. Catalina's heart fell. He didn't make it out or kill the creature. She was also aware that the year she jumped was 2016. More than likely, the cat was dead. She folded the paper and carefully placed it in her breast pocket. Her eyes glanced around the open space. There were patches of walls spread around her, all either directing to a dead end or a loop. On the carpet was a faint trail of dark spots. She followed it in cautious steps. The wound had started to bleed through the sheet of paper. With a huff, she took the other crumpled notes and wedged them around the inside of her sock. Red blood trickled onto the carpet. The trail continued for several minutes before a stench made her double over. "It smells like dog glands and rot," she gagged. The headache came back stronger. Around the corner was a deep nook. "Oh, God," she vomited. A black mass lay against a pale yellow wall. Dried blood mingled with mold in huge splatters. The source was a half-decayed body, sitting upright. Parts of their limbs were clean to the bone, while the rest were a partially preserved sack of flesh and exposed muscle. It had no face, with exposed brain matter. A gun lay at their side with 2 sets of magazines. Catalina held her breath as she leaned over and plucked the weapon and cartridges. Her vision blurred with tears as her skull throbbed in a rhythm. Once she put some much-needed space between herself and the body, she inhaled and took deep breaths. Even from afar, the black patterns were recognizable. "That must have been him," she groaned and clamped her lips together to stop another burst of bile from leaving her throat. "Get it together." She checked the rounds in her hand. The clip that was wedged in the gun had been emptied. When her uncle, a hunter in Wyoming, took her around the forest before the start of school, He'd demonstrate how to kill a deer by shooting a replica. She knew how to handle a shotgun, but the weapon in her hand was different. It felt heavy in her bloody palm and slightly sticky. Can't be too hard, right? She ejected the empty mag and shoved the full one inside, making sure to keep her fingers off the trigger, and aimed away from herself. A thought occurred to her. What would happen if the gun were jammed? Should she test it? She gathered it would be safer to fire a warning shot, but only if she was within a safe area. I could go back. As she turned to leave, a scream reached her ear. She scoffed and rolled her eyes before taking off in the direction she came from. Back in the kitchen, the monster's stomps got progressively louder. Catalina wedged herself back through the crack as the monster slammed itself against it. She jumped, eyes wide, as she saw a pale, slack-jawed face through the opening. The mask, being too small, looked uncanny against the black mass that undulated with every growl. Its human mouth stretched, showing an endless hole with rows of dagger-edged teeth and a bobbing white crustacean with beady eyes for a tongue. Oh, that's foul. The parasite's many little legs crawled over the bottom of the monster's mouth. It was headed for her. Catalina scrambled to the end and pointed the gun at it. Just as the bug hopped out of its mouth, she fired. The walls shook. Overhead lights flickered as a warbled shriek echoed. The small white creature scuttled out of the darkness. Her heel dug into it and dragged gray guts over the carpet. Is that it? Barrel raised, she pointed it around her. Moose? She turned to the gap in the wall. The lights on the other side shone white. It enveloped the tiny space and showed the beast lying on its back. The wide mouth pulsed as it whined. Moose? It continued, then rattled. Catalina frowned. It had no right to mimic a person, a human. Arms raised, she fired 4 shots through the rack and into its head. The slimy mask slid to the carpet. Green spores sprouted from the bullet holes. She sighed and walked away from the mess. She eventually made her way back to Peter's body. There was no funeral or fancy commemoration, only words of thanks and I hope you're better wherever you are. The quiet, now official, made her smile. Her walks around the place were oddly peaceful. There was no hurry or concern as she followed the unmarked areas. The pain in her feet and back was replaced by a cooling numbness. She stopped on couches and chairs wherever she could, drank from abandoned water fountains, and ate what little food was stuck inside vending machines. As she searched for a comfortable spot to sleep, a soft beep echoed. It was a solitary noise, but oddly distinct, a light mechanical boop. Without thinking, she trailed it. The area it came from grew dark. Parts of the ceiling came in. Water trickled onto a soggy carpet. Lights buzzed and flickered, trying to hold on as far as they could. In the empty, black space, the boop was clear. An elevator sat at the other end. Doors opened and a green light above it. She gasped and ran inside. They closed. She instinctively looked for buttons. However, the smooth, reflective metal walls had none. A whoosh took over as she felt it go upward. She sighed with relief, her mind a whirlwind of scenarios. She practiced what she'd tell the authorities. Would they believe her? She did look like a crazy person with the gun practically glued to her hand. However, she did have the scars to back up her story. The ride stopped. With a cheerful ding, the doors opened to a metal walkway. She exited the elevator and gazed at the posters along the stale beige walls. The images were of figures in hazmat suits following basic safety instructions. There were warnings about the confusing landscape they were about to enter. As she followed the story, she came across double doors. A push of the handle opened to a laboratory, but instead of the usual flasks and multicolored vials, blueprints for machines and doorways were open on the table. She paused and read the documents. Peter's theory was correct. A research company named Vital Industries had been approved for further funding. The donors? Politicians, unknowing taxpayers, and big corporations, preferably in oil. No wonder you chose Texas, she mumbled and flipped it over. An abrupt termination page hit her in bold red letters. The reason? An unidentified lanky organism was found by research teams when collecting samples. The discovery of it led to 3 deaths before investors backed out. Vital Industries originally planned to use the space as an underground bunker in case of international nuclear threats. Growing tensions between leading countries would result in a fallout that the Earth would not recover from. The discovery of the pocket dimension would keep humanity safe. By the look of the given dates on the blueprints, they started the program in the late 80s and continued up to 2003. The push date for funding sat on September 11th, 2001. Catalina slept on the couch in the cold room for hours. The bleeding in her ankle had since stopped, and when she pried the soggy parchments off her skin, bits of it stuck to the cuts. She kept them on as a bandage. Just as she drifted off, an impulsive, conscious thought whispered in her ear. Would she be a threat to national security? She let out a frustrated noise and curled into a ball. If she found a way out, would it have mattered? Not if they locked her in federal prison or executed her in an undisclosed location. She'd be another face on a missing poster. The lab had a door, a simple, plain wooden door with a bright red exit sign hung overhead. She sighed and took it. As she stepped through, a gust of cool air hit her face. She staggered and squinted. The scene was nearly comical. She stood on a walkway that connected to the other half of the building. Around her was a bright open blue sky with sparse clouds. On the other end of what was shaped to be an infinite hotel. Each window mirrored an odd room. She turned around, seeing she had left the same thing. The nearest window showed the monotonous yellow rooms. The one next to it had the abandoned office spaces. And next to that, the tunnels she ran through. A startled, maniac laugh left her as she doubled over. I left, she thought. I left for what? This is hell, a man-made hell. Bleary-eyed, she turned back for one final thing. Catalina left a note. With a pencil in the back of a document, she detailed who she was and her life. In it, she apologized to Jesse, her high school friend, for sleeping with her later husband. She apologized to him, too, for entertaining his fantasies and thinking she'd be a good mother to his unborn child. She finally forgave her mother for the childhood neglect she felt. Hell, she even left a thank you note to Peter, and in the end, she left a warning to the next person with instructions on where they'd find the gun. She signed off with her full name and stepped out into the cool sky. And just as another headache came on, she faced the shining, ray-filled sky and lifted the gun. Zoe Falk is a dark fantasy writer from San Antonio, Texas. Her writing specializes in surrealism, liminal spaces, and dissecting humanity's moral compass. Her work has been featured on the Atomic Voodoo Lounge before with her story Millie in Season 2, Episode 3, and her story Divine Fruit in Season 2, Episode 6. I hope you enjoyed Zoe Falk's Backrooms Panic. I mean, who doesn't like to be panicked in the back rooms? Anyway, I will be releasing this story, both parts, as an AVL short within the next week or so. Stay tuned. From Taboo Recordings, here's brand new music from Kitten and the Tonics with Monarch Beach. Yes, Kitten and the Tonics with Monarch Beach, courtesy of Taboo Recordings. Check them out at houseoftaboo.com or Bandcamp or Apple Music. We're going to finish off the show with 3 summer poems that I wrote just this summer. I hope you like them. Morning by Maxwell Vegas. The moon's white shadow fades last night's dream along hanging telephone lines into morning's blue. Pompeii of the Mind by Maxwell Vegas. Distant eruption, red lightning cloaked, swirling black, reaches across all time and space, and we struggle, the churning cerulean waters below. But can we climb high enough to escape ourselves in this vastness, a well deeper than dreams? Another song by Maxwell Vegas. Birdsong in the humid morning, light rain, a simple breeze. The AC unit rattles and rattles as if it belongs. Thanks for listening to the Atomic Voodoo Lounge podcast. I'm Maxwell Vegas. If you're in the middle of an Everglades double cross, just finish the drink already and order a copy of New Stanton from Barnes & Noble or Amazon, and you'll be totally fine. Also, check out the Atomic Voodoo Lounge podcast playlist on Apple and Spotify. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe at atomicvoodoolounge.com. It's free. I always mention it. And spread the good word. And if you are interested in contributing or being a sponsor, drop me a line and we can discuss the particulars. And don't forget, our 6-word noir challenge is open to subscribers via the Atomic Voodoo Lounge chat. Check out the Atomic Voodoo Lounge on Substack and subscribe. For more information about Maxwell Vegas and Heavy Sixer Productions, check out HeavySixerProductions.com or MaxwellVegas.com. Big thank you to Wade, curator of the DVD Vault on Substack and Instagram, the Riptide Rats, Kitten and the Tonics, Zoe Falk for part 2 of her Backrooms Panic. Some sound effects and music used under Creative Commons license. All words and music composed, read, programmed, and or performed by Maxwell Vegas, unless otherwise stated. All text, music, and performances copyright Heavy Sixer Productions, LLC, 2026. And remember, no AI training, please.